de la part de notre fondatrice Phoebe Greenberg. Je voudrais vous remercier d'être avec nous. Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. If we haven't met yet, je m'appelle Cheryl Sim, je suis la directrice générale et commissaire en chef à FI. Et pour commencer, je reconnais que FI est située sur des terres autochtones non cédées. Tiohtià:ke, Mouniang, Montréal a toujours été un lieu de rassemblement, de vie, de rencontres et d'échanges pour de nombreuses Premières Nations, dont les peuples Kanien'kehá:ka, Huron-Wendat, Abénaquis et Anishinaabe. En tant que colons et enfants des parents immigrants, je remercie infiniment les peuples autochtones pour le soin qu'ils et elles prennent pour protéger cette terre, et je vise aussi à faire mon mieux pour célébrer et protéger cette terre. Cette exposition majeure de Laure Prouveau s'appelle Hommage, et nous allons le célébrer avec un vernissage demain soir à 17h30. Hommage est organisé par le Ramey Modern à Saskatoon, conçu par Aileen Burns, co-directrice exécutive et PDG du Ramey Modern. Cette exposition a été adaptée pour la Fondation FI grâce à une précieuse collaboration entre Laure, Aileen, moi, le studio de Laure et l'équipe de FI. Avant de présenter Laure et Aileen, nous aimerions remercier le Conseil des arts et des lettres du Québec, Tourisme Montréal, le Consulat général de France à Québec et notre partenaire média, la presse. Nous sommes vraiment reconnaissants envers eux pour leur appui. J'aimerais aussi remercier mes collègues Victoria Carrasco, Dalia Cheng, Clara Bolinguez et Eddie, le technicien, pour tout leur travail pour ce soir, ainsi que les membres de cette équipe magnifique qui ont travaillé sur l'exposition et le programme d'événements, événements publics et éducatifs qui vont dérouler tout le long de la durée de l'exposition jusqu'au 9 mars. Laure Prouveau est née en 1978 à Lille, en France, et vit actuellement à Bruxelles, en Belgique. Elle obtient en 2002 un baccalauréat en arts visuels de Central St. Martin's à Londres, puis poursuit ses études de maîtrise au Goldsmiths College. Elle a également participé au programme Lux, Associate Artists, et en 2011, Prouveau remporte le prix Max Mara et ensuite le Turner Prize en 2013. Elle a aussi représenté la France au Biennale de Venise en 2019. Laure est connue pour son utilisation ludique du langage, la traduction et de la translittération, ainsi que pour ses vidéos expérimentales narrées et ses surprenantes installations immersives, souvent composées d'objets du quotidien qui nous plongent dans des mondes inédits. Aileen Burns est, avec Johan Lund, co-directrice exécutive du Ramey Modern à Saskatoon depuis 2020. Elle a occupé des postes similaires à la Govett Brewster Art Gallery à New Plymouth en Nouvelle-Zélande, à l'Institute of Modern Art à Brisbane en Australie et au Centre for Contemporary Art à Derry Londonderry en Irlande du Nord. Bien que directrice, elle est avant tout passionnée par la création d'expositions. Elle a été commissaire et co-commissaire de plus de 50 expositions, dont celle de Prouveau dans le cadre du prix Turner en 2013. Parmi les artistes avec qui elle a collaboré, mentionnons Céline Condorelli, Dee Harding, Christine Sun Kim, Caribbean Film Collective, Slavs and Tatters, Ethos Deyer et Egg Yang. S'il vous plaît, souhaitons la bienvenue à Laure Prouveau et Aileen Burns. Avant que je vous laisse parler un petit peu de l'exposition, Laure, je voulais t'inviter à parler un petit peu au niveau des grandes questions qui ont guidé tes pratiques toutes ces années.
Oui, bonsoir. Merci à tous d'être là, d'être ce grand soleil qui m'éblouit là. Mais je vous imagine un peu. Merci à FI Fondation d'avoir tellement, d'être tellement impliqué dans ce projet, on a eu plein de gatherings et de rendez-vous pour réimaginer cette exposition qui évolue constamment, qui évolue par rapport au lieu, bien sûr, mais aussi aux rencontres, qui évolue avec le temps aussi, où donc on avait créé cette œuvre ça fait 1 an peut-être, 1 an et demi, surtout l'œuvre qui a été conçue ensemble, une collaboration d'abord à Saskatoon et puis maintenant ici. Mais mon œuvre, alors, ça c'est un peu dur de... ouais, c'est un grand... comment dire? Ouais, je crois que... il y a plusieurs points principaux qui vont revenir dans notre discussion, j'imagine, mais j'ai commencé un peu... déjà, j'ai bougé en Europe, c'était pas énorme, mais de la France à la Belgique, à l'Angleterre, et de retour vers la Belgique. Je crois que c'est utiliser le langage, la langue comme une matière, en fait, comme une terre, plein de matières différentes qu'on peut mêler. Et donc, les mots étaient toujours quelque chose qui ont été... d'abord, j'avais toujours des très mauvaises notes en français. Donc, j'ai dit toujours... j'ai voulu lutter... Je luttais un petit peu contre... et je crois que l'art m'a un peu aussi sauvé des mots, et en même temps, je les utilise énormément. Ça devient de la matière qui sont ou bien en anglais car j'ai fait mes études à Londres, ou en français quand je travaille avec le français, mais que ce soit pas un travail final au niveau des voilà, comme de la couleur, comme de la peinture, donc ça c'est un thème assez important. C'est aussi sur l'idée de mes compréhensions, quand je suis arrivée à Londres, je comprenais rien, donc j'imaginais ce que les gens disaient, et ça me crée des fantaisies assez incroyables, et donc j'avais beaucoup d'espace pour l'imagination, et Londres a été important pour moi, c'est sûr, parce que j'ai grandi ma pratique là-bas, hein, en faisant mes études là-bas. C'était des études de film et vidéo à Central St. Martins. J'avais un professeur qui s'appelle John Smith. Il y en a beaucoup des John Smith, mais celui-là, it's a real John Smith. C'est un vrai. Et on s'est très vite bien entendu parce qu'il jouait déjà beaucoup avec les mots, en tout cas avec la perception des choses, sans que je connaisse vraiment son œuvre au départ. Et puis après, on s'est provoqué un peu, et on grandit. Enfin, je crois vraiment que c'est pour ça, c'est aussi le travail, c'est un énorme travail de collaboration, d'échange, je crois, de voix qui viennent vers nous, et de dialogue, de dialogue avec ces échanges entre artistes, dans la société, ou juste l'odeur d'une bonne tomate quand elle est chaude, c'est bien beau et il fait chaud. Enfin, tout peut être un peu inspiration, je crois. Et donc, c'est assez organique aussi sur des moments, là, comme hommage. Ça a été beaucoup un moment où c'est des moments de vie, quoi. Vous allez voir, c'est beaucoup par rapport à what I feel at certain moments, qu'est-ce que je ressens, et puis où ce que le monde nous provoque avec des choses fortes, comme le Covid, ou une naissance, ou une grand-mère, ou enfin plein de choses j'essaie d'utiliser de pas pousser que la vie soit, c'est pas l'art et la vie, quoi. C'est tout devient un. Donc voilà, c'est assez dur, mais il y a beaucoup de sujets, je suis sûre on va rentrer, mais voilà. Et puis je suis tellement heureuse d'être ici. Merci de m'avoir invitée à Montréal, que je découvre et que j'apprécie énormément so far. Donc, c'est super. Voilà. Peut-être encore.
It's a very nice transition, like this blending of art and life. Maybe the question of what your family is and who an artist is, from very early in your practice, you were focused on your grandfather and his experience and view of art. Can you tell us a little bit about your granddad?
Yeah, so my granddad is a conceptual artist who I'll switch to English because I think it's easier to not constant, but we can mix a bit, I think. So this is the living room. It's the piece we presented for the Turner Prize. And we worked together with Aileen on the presentation. And my granddad is a conceptual artist, but was a very close friend of Kurt Schwitters. And I got invited by Tate to do a piece on him when they did a show on Kurt Schwitter, and I was a bit annoyed, but it was just because they knew that I was the grandchild of. It was not really because I was a good artist, but they still invited me. And then I made this piece around my grandfather, who's been he had a lot of different concepts, and he got a bit forgotten towards the end of his life. And his last concept was to dig a tunnel in the north of England to go. We're not too sure, but we think towards Africa, without the authority to know about it. So that was really one of his major concepts. And we brought some of the tables and chairs, or the domestic things from my grandparents' home. As you can see, there's a lot of sculptures, and these are bits of Kurt Schwitters that my grandmother started using to repair chairs, or use the painting to make trays, or so it was a lot of these elements I wanted to show them in the show. And then there was a video where I told the story of my granddad who's lost, and you should see the living room. The actual living room piece looks a bit fancy, but in real it's like mud everywhere because he made a hole in the middle of. Yeah, that looks a bit more like it. And my grandma's always sitting there, so it's a bit cleaner. She gets deliveries from Tesco and eat crisps, and so I made that film around them. And my granddad, I once or twice tried to go into the tunnel and try to find him, and you should see the tunnel is like so dark, really dark, and humid. And I went in and I kept walking, and you just hear little drops of water, like, and I walk for miles and miles, and there was nothing, and I would just scream, "Granddad! Can you hear me? Granddad!" I kept screaming, trying to find him in the darkness, and but I saw two little shiny things, and I thought it was his eyes, but it was just two nails. And so yeah, my granddad is lost, and it's, I think for me it's very much about history that is past a bit, and maybe it's history, and maybe it should be her story. So it's a bit the granddad who's is from one moment to a bit switching attention a bit. So my grandma is taking already quite a lot of space in the Wanty piece.
Yeah, I think we learn through Wan Tea and the installation that, serving tea, sitting together, drinking endless cups of tea is important to that story and experience of your grandparents. So I think if people keep their eyes open, then maybe they'll find traces of Granddad. We haven't seen him since he dug the hole, but maybe you'll see what he's been up to with his tea bags.
He would dry his tea bag always on the heater to reuse them. So you'll find them.
You might even get a cup of tea in the show, but it won't be reused. We do promise that. So we move from this moment of thinking about Granddad to thinking about your grandmother. Who is she, and what is it like to be married to a conceptual artist? What does that do to a person?
Oof. Just to any artist. Yeah, I think she became quite creative as well, and I think it was. I think her art was kind of towards. I think she wanted to make this conceptual useful, so I think much more like. But art is useful in the mind of course, but also in. So she's. I think she was really into making teapots and I think the grandmother became more and more an important figure in terms of her dreams, and like I used to assist this artist called John Latham. It's a conceptual artist in England, in London, and his wife Barbara Steveni was an amazing artist. They started this project called APG, Artist Placement Group. They would place artists in government and businesses, and it's an amazing thing that's kind of half active now, not so active. But I always she would sign as a secretary, Barbara, for all that time, and actually that for me, placing artists in government was an art piece. It was her work, and she had to charm the world to make things happen. And so I think I had this desire to put in the grandmother much more in the forefront. Her dreams, which can be sometimes simple, just dreaming of a bathroom covered of pink carpet all over ceiling, floor, or just feeling free, or doing her art and doing her. So this was actually, we made that piece during the Turner Prize. So first I produced a grand 1T for the show at Tate around Katrina, and then I wanted to have a second entry to the piece through my grandma's dream. So you'll see it's in the show. So hopefully, if you come tomorrow, you'll see grandma's dream there. Yeah, that's installation.
So, in addition to getting to know your grandmother and grandfather in this show, there are works that look more toward the start of life, to mothering done by many people, ways that we transmit knowledge and ways of being in the world. And I think 4 Sea Beauties, we dive into the ocean to think a little bit about care and how knowledge transfers. Can you tell us a bit about 4 Sea Beauties?
Yeah, so this piece is, I think it's looking at a very different generation, the beginning of life, how this beginning could turn into a granddad or a grandma as well, but it's really the early, I basically wanted to use my child. Like, she was born and I couldn't work that much. And someone invited me to do a piece in Helsinki, Zhao Lao, Zhao Lao, a wonderful curator. He said, "Do you want to come and do a piece in a sauna?" And I'm like, yeah, definitely come for that. So we, and then I just gave birth to my Esme Blue, my last baby, and I thought, I really want to do a piece of about the beginning of life. I feel like there's been a lot of point of view, maybe like like Renaissance, like romanticizing birth and the beginning more from a male perspective, possibly. And I wanted to really do this work on the beginning of life, as very much as us being little fishes inside the stomach, but then also fishes on the planet, and how we sort of evolve into mammals from fishes, and also this thing about caring and mothering and liquids mixing, and very sensual and very sticky and moment, very animal also, very so it's that was really a piece that was made because of a specific moment. My Esme Blue was, I think, a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, when I traveled there, I thought, yeah, let's do it. And we realized that actually in the north they would give birth in saunas in the past, so it had a lot. I think it was just a perfect moment, and sometimes things like that happen. And so it was for me. It's a very important piece because it's very close to me, and it's also. I think, yeah, it's also opening that. Yeah, translating that moment from a perspective of a woman. So yeah, hopefully you melt into this wound. You'll see it's quite cozy, and so yeah, this is showing.
And maybe you see by now that this exhibition unfolds through very different spaces. You know, we start in a almost underground with Wanti and move into a dream space and dive into red liquid. And we emerge at the top of this set of installations in the sky, and we return to your grandmother with a piece called Every Sunday Grandma. And, you know, the works, Grandma's Dream and Every Sunday Grandma were made 10 years apart. And I would observe that Grandma has changed a lot over the course of 10 years, that her dreams have evolved. She's like emancipated in this new world. And why are we in the sky, and what is she up to now?
Yeah, someone say, oh, but you put a face to grandma. And it's true, I think grandmas is a lot of different grandmothers. I don't feel like, I mean, of course I've got my own, but I also feel like I grew from many, many grandmothers. But this grandmother is, she's flying above the clouds. So she's like a goddess. Maybe she's before, or after, or now. She's just. It's actually came from a little story I did when I was still at St. Martin's. I mean, like, where it's a story of my grandma who loves. She goes with my uncle who has a little plane, and they go off every Sunday, and she undresses and she attach a rope around her legs, and then she just jumps naked like in the sky, and she floats and feels the world and feels super at peace and happy, and it was just a little drawing with a story, a little painting A4, and then I thought I'd like to really see her flying. So she's this goddess, and another not a god. I think I wanted that goddess who directs the world. She pulls the car. She tells them to go left or right. She's looking at everything a bit from distance, and she's liberated. Yeah, she's free. So it's just pure kind of joy of becoming something else. Also, could we become birds who belongs to no nation, or can we become just, I think, it's dreams we might have at night where we're flying, and it's actually, it's possible in film. It's amazing. You can fly.
She's like radicalized. She's realized herself, and now she's dreaming of that kind of fluidity for all people, which I think is so beautiful. She's looking down on the world and imagining a space that's shared in gentler and more loving ways, which is...
Yeah, and it's a lot about, like in the piece for Venice, it was very important to, it's multi-generational, like not to isolate generations, but being this one thing where we're from. So yeah, I'm glad she's here, hovering above us. Maybe you can see her. If you look tomorrow, she might fly by Montreal to come for the opening.
Anyway, so now we move to the next site of the exhibition, to the new commission for this exhibition, and also for Kunsthal Wien. That is talking about Oma, grandmother, Je, the self, but also that it is a series of homages to a great many grandmothers. And it's a super collaborative work. And before we get into who's honored in that work and how and with whom, we're very grateful to Cheryl and to Five for bringing Sam Balinfante, one of the collaborators on that project, and many others with Law. So Sam is here. And instead of just talking to you about what you can see in the show, it's a super immersive experience. We thought we would invite Sam, who is an artist in his own right, and a musician, and a great sport, to come up and lead all of us in kind of recreating a really important aspect of the installation.
Is it possible to have a tiny bit more light? Since we're all friends and there's nothing to worry about here.
So if you're up for it, we can warm up a bit and not listen just to us, but sing together. No?
So, this is a piece of music that Law and me we wrote together based on a text by Hélène Sixou, and again it's one of these many important grandmothers in the exhibition, and then the text is from the beginning of her the book, which is The Long, Very Long Journey, and so you'll hear it in the exhibition in the new installation. But really, this is not something to be scared of. But if it helps you with the words, this is great. But I'm going to sing a line, and then maybe you can sing it back if you feel able. And then part two, maybe we'll just get some of the lines going independently and get this incredible cloud of music going on. So the first line, which is the main line, is the long, very long journey. So I'll sing it once and you sing it back to me. The long, very long journey. The long, very long journey. Oh, you've got great voices. I mean, actually, you're holding back. I can tell. Okay. And then it's the goal is known, but not how long. The goal is known, but not how long. Okay, and then it goes back. The long, very long journey. The goal is known, but not how long. Okay, that's great. Just to get a bit more confidence. So if you guys on this side, you'll start with me, and then you guys will wait, and I'll bring you guys in. So it's like a round. Okay. Okay. So. The long, very long, the long, very long is no journey, but now is known, but now very long. Okay, great, fantastic, great, that's great, okay, and then just one last bit, and then it's. The voyage is going to last. So anybody who feels a bit more confident, they just can go anytime. The voyage is going to last. The voyage is going to last. So confident people do that, and then the rest people will do the first bit. So okay, 3, 4. The long, very long, the long, very long journey.
Oh, bravo, and thank you so much for helping bring
Thanks,
them back to
Anne.
life.
I think we needed that. So
Yeah.
we have a bit of a moment together of hearing beautiful voices. So good.
So, as I mentioned, it's a very collaborative work. Music produced with Sam, for example, and it also brings together grandmothers, art historical grandmothers, biological grandmothers, imagined grandmothers. Can you tell us a bit about who some of these grandmothers are that we might encounter?
Yeah, of course. I think I want this piece gathering homage like the Glaneuses. It's one room where we try to gather. I wanted to gather as many stories. It's also a book called Homage, gathering stories from friends about their grandmothers. So I think we have about 150 stories of tiny short anecdotes of what they remember with their grandmothers. And I wanted to make this work an homage, and with Hélène Sixou, for example, was in it. I think it's mixing the personal, but also with grandmothers that have fed a whole generation, I think, of artists, thinkers, musicians, who fed a new way of a kind of freedom. Also, I want this homage of for me it was an homage to this door being open also for my generation to be able to create and be invited to produce, and these invitations are so important for the work to grow. And that's thanks to all these grandmothers who pushed doors, or maybe at that time they were not. There was, for example, I think I feel I had the chance to be supported with my practice. I mean, it's not finished, the fight. Well, it's not really a fight, but it's still keeping the doors opening and more, and also really wanted to thank them, thank these wonderful people, men and women, who've opened this new other ways of working, and I think even for me to be able to do a piece around having a baby or something that's a couple of generations, it would have been difficult, I think. So it's this kind of I just it was a moment I felt I need to do that piece. So it's a bit less around the imaginary, or it's much more close to the heart, like very honest piece. And we've got the Glaneuses here, which is Agnès Varda, one of my dear. I worked with her a little bit when I did a piece in France, when I did the Venice Pavilion. I invited her to film a small sequence in my film. And I said, "Oh, I want to film you." And she said, "No, I want to film you." I said, "No, I want to film you." And at the end, I managed to film her a little bit in a potato costume as a Glaneuse, and so she appears like this. And then I said, "Can you come in Venice?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm gonna come with my big wheelbarrow, and I've got I want to show this and that." And she had so many ideas, and so for me, it's close. It's a friendship, but also an incredible artist and filmmaker that I totally admire, and I wanted her to be part. There's one tea, my grandma's teapot. She makes pots which are ready to kiss you, and little teacups. There's the Venus. I don't like calling her the Vilnius or Willendorf, but that's how they call her. But she's more like a figurine for me. That is like maybe a grandmother figurine that's being passed on from hands to hands, and she's kind of the beginning of representation of a female, and what did it mean at the time to pass on this thing you pass on from generation to generation, this little figurine, which they call the Venus, but that's really I think, a certain perspective. There's a little shelf you may find in the exhibition, which is a shelf was given to me from a dear friend of mine, her grandmother in Sweden. And then we've got Louise Bourgeois, who's climbing up the walls with boobies and spiders. And then this is more around the motherhood, the beginning of life, fishes that turn into mammals, and mammals or us that are floating around like from generation, from the beginning to all the time. This is another friend of mine, Elena Curtis, who's told me about the shoes her grandma would wear when she did a barbecue. I use a glass quite often. I love the idea of this liquidity of storytelling, or liquidity of a medium that hardens and has a transparency, and you can see layers of history. But there's so many. There's 100. They found actually about 130 sisters, which was the little Venus of Willendorf, scattered around the world. So this idea that it was really a journey, the long, very long journey that Sam wrote and the music for the piece, which became a big performance in Vienna, and this idea of passing on history, passing on knowledge was very important. That was the core of the piece, kind of.
Yeah. So, just to add more layers, as if it isn't already a layered enough work, both at Rémy Modern and here in Montreal, we have also gathered works by grandmothers of each institution and of Laur's art historical journey. So just, a few wonderful works you might encounter include works by Yoko Ono, Anne Newdigate, and Eugenie Kablutok that share themes and perspectives that really unfold throughout the whole show, and they kind of gather in circles. So at the center of the exhibition is a fire with all of these wonderful homages Laure just described. You're encircled by a sort of gathering of spirits. On the outer wall, there are works by grandmother artists, not just Laure's, but the institutions, etc. And one more layer to maybe give a nod to, incredibly important to the new work, are 3 films.
Yeah, so there's 3 videos which we produced for the exhibition, and we've got this. I gathered a group of young women who came on a big walk with me in the Calanque in Marseille, and we filmed in a cave as if we would gather, as if we would live in the cave like in the past. And there's the figurine which is there, and so it's I think it articulates the piece quite well, because they pass on the figurine to one another, and each of them tell a little story around their relationship with their grandmother. So it's about 10-minute piece, which is really about this gathering of in a moment. So it was one day of walking with Dora, who was shooting with me, who's here as well, who's a wonderful artist herself, and who worked on the exhibition so wonderfully, and also was with me on this long walk and long a beautiful moment. We were very lucky with the weather as well. And then we got up there. It's called Shadow Does, which is I want this in 3 parts. So Shadow Does is really about I think it's when the exhibition is interesting because we have the baby, the child who's learning, who de-learning, will receive, and we have the adults who trying to make sense of the world, and then there's the grandmothers and and then the Shadow Does is a child who's talking to a grandmother. It's like a letter to a grandmother as a shadow and she tells us, now, Grandma, we eat avocados. We can fly a few thousand kilometers from across the Atlantic. We can order nails and the internet. We can eat. There's boobs growing on trees. And she starts making up some things, but she's also telling but maybe a couple of generations back, what crazy our world is now, and how global and also complex. And there's less snow in the Alps. There's less snow. So that's a very short little, but it's. And then she also says there's wonderful parties where we all dance and the music is crazy loud and it's wonderful, and then the room sort of turns into a disco or a proper club. So there's all this, and then there's also all this grandmother that appears in the exhibition, which are the last film, which is the walking story, where it's the woman passing and mentioning all these amazing people who have made work, and like Hélène and John Jonas, and like so many, they pass on, and there's a moment where we have also full electronic music that have been created, and so all these this homage. And that's the walking story, and you're welcome to walk as well, take on the journey with you, and leave the show outside the show, I think, in the streets. And, I
mean, it is the most dense but beautifully choreographed and articulated work. It will take you through space and time and all senses, and really immerse you in this moment of homage. And I think there's a real counterpoint in the exhibition, from density and a kind of dim, not dream world, but a kind of meditative, focused space. I mean, it kind of break back into the light for a kind of return to that moment of relearning, de-learning, embodied ways of knowing that are so important to so many, actually, of the figures honored, like asking the world to think again, to dream again, to see things differently. And I think, in material form and through iconography and a kind of a lexicon, you've created a very open moment of relearning. You talk a little bit about This Means, a sculpture that will be encountered in the show, and De-Learn, which sits as its companion for this show.
Thanks. So this is the octopus, which comes a lot in the practice. Ça c'est très franc. Elle est belle, la pieuvre qui nous arrose et nous éclabousse. Elle a toutes ces tentacules qui peut nous chatouiller, tickle us, tickle the brain. I think it's a lot about tickling ideas, tickling ways of doing, and she holds on a lot of different. She teaches you. She's teaching you a new language, or can we become closer to each other, being one another. I think the piece in Venice was very, very much like that, like each of us being a tentacle, or being feeling each other, understanding one another, becoming another, not being able to lose our own to become something else. And she has, for me, that very important symbol in some ways. It's a kind of symbol, and she holds love up. Yeah, please share love around, and we have a few here, but not so many. So Clementine she teaches you that Clementine means love. The glass means mother. The fish means together. So there's a kind of you de-learning and relearning a new kind of story, ways of thinking. So the film teach you a new meanings of objects. And so it's a kind of game as well. Like when you learn and de-learn, it was also a moment where I think a lot of us were questioning what we've learned. Or, I mean, not a moment. Generally, what do we teach ourselves, and what do we keep and learn and unlearn and relearn? And so keeping this constant flux of being able to sense the world in many layers. So it became also a very large performance where we worked, which was a collaboration with Sam as well, which we toured in MPAC in Troy, in Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, and in Brussels. So it had many life, and I think a lot of it is also about translating a film into a performance, into a painting, into just a text work, which is again is every time it's a kind of material, like the words are material, or what does this really mean? Is it mother, or is it tea? Is it granddad? Is it God or dog, or God or dog, or dog or God? And it's the transparency for John Latham. It was God, and I sometimes think it's dog, but God and dog. So these are all. This is really the last piece we're showing in the exhibition, and it's about keeping that flux of learning and unlearning and relearning and de-learning. And dit en français, bien sûr, tu dis, t'apprends comme un enfant qui répète. Et c'était au début, là, je l'avais fait aussi au moment où mon garçon grandissait, puis il était là. On était en Anvers, donc on parlait flamand. Sauf moi, enfin, tout le monde, sauf moi. Je parle toujours pas bien du tout. Cake, mama, a tree, regarde, un arbre, like really pointing at things, this means that, and how we learn, this means shoes, this means, and then how do you question this again, and how do you have that distance to words on things and the power of words? I think it's this authority that the word puts on something. So it's again, we also did a de-learning center in London during COVID time, so there's a long queue to unlearn. You had to queue a lot to unlearn.
We have a great deal to unlearn. I think the show prompts us to find those people who create visions of the world that we need to carry with us and carry their work forward, but also not to take for granted what we think we know, and to open our minds and our bodies and our hearts to different ways of knowing and better ways of being together. I find it a very optimistic exhibition. It starts in a very anxious place about the state of conceptual art, and it opens up through a conceptual practice to a very optimistic and inclusive space. So thank you for creating that journey, and it's such a delight to work with you.
It's so nice to also grow together, have that relationship with you, with Sam, with Dora, with the team here and meeting. And thank you all so much, everyone, for incredible gathering of brains and minds who make things happen together. So it's always collaborative, and collaborate with the birds who let a bit of space in the sky to fly here, and then we try to collaborate with petrol sometimes, with, how do we, so it's this big world. But I'm super grateful. I'm so happy that we have this length of, I think it's beautiful, because in the art it can go quite fast, and this invitation to have a long, for us it's feel like a very old grandmother now, having moved around and having that long-term relationship, inventing together. So I'm super grateful to this long collaboration and the new ones. So
we pass to Cheryl. If people have questions, just
Oui, merci infiniment. Quelle générosité. Je dois dire que plusieurs fois, à différents moments, en regardant les œuvres pendant le montage, c'est extrêmement touchant. I've like said many times, I've gotten verklempt many, many times. And on te remercie alors vraiment pour ta présence. Hein. Je pense qu'on se sent vraiment choyé. Hein. Thank you, Aileen, for your trust and for inviting us to consider bringing homage to Montreal. We went to see the show last December, and so we're almost a year around the circle. So what a wonderful way to, increase the circle of collaboration. Alors, on va ouvrir les questions, questions, whichever language you want to use, and we have someone who can come around with a microphone. Voilà, on a du temps, donc n'hésitez pas, don't be shy.
Hi. I have a question. Like, I've seen a couple of your works before, and whenever I've seen them, there's always like this such a sense of like closeness, and there's often like many different people involved. And I've always been curious about your relationship to the people that often show up in your video works, because it seems so, I don't know, like sacred and personal.
Yeah. Thank you. Merci. Ouais, je crois que it's because how is it? Yeah, it's trying to translate very also a sensation of a moment. So and not to make. I feel like my work is stronger when I have it becomes fragile as well, or when it's about sharing. How do you say? I never find my word, but sort of. J'ai plus le mot, mais quand on est sur essayer de I think translating something when you're very insecure as well, or and letting and not being afraid of the insecurity and sort of sharing of fragility. Having it, je crois que c'est comme d'avoir ces espaces où then there's also characters who come in. I think for the characters are a bit more for me. I feel like when it's my grandma, I can say it's not me who says this. It's my grandma. I would never dare saying this. So you can use the character to say things that you might not dare yourself. And I think the idea. I know the idea of closeness. It's not an idea, but an artwork from a work or a piece is a piece that hopefully can share as much as possible, or like have a sense of exchange. Of course, it's a kind of trompe-l'œil. It's sound, recorded sound. It's pixels and it's voices which are pre-recorded and stuff. But can it create a kind of sense of of a real exchange, and the character offer this to me. I think if I get into the can I? It's a translation. Can you through film? I mean, film is still my main medium. It's really the beginning, but it's a material. How can you sense metal in your mouth with lemon? It's like, and it's gathering all this sensation in one 10-second moment of intensity. So it's a lot about pushing. I don't know. Be able to translate as that's usually what I try. But sorry, it's completely terrible. Whatever. It's like
No, thank you.
Une autre. autre.
It's gone too far. I think we need to go.
Go ahead.
And my father was an artist too, so I get a lot of what you're saying. And I'm just wondering, with your children, how do they engage with you and your art?
That's interesting. Like, I've got a good story. Recently, I took I've got an oldest daughter who's 11 now, and I took her to in Brussels to see different school for secondary school, and every time I asked, do you have a bit of art, just 1 hour, or history of art in the curriculum, and most of them didn't have any. And on the 5th school, my daughter was like, stop asking about art. I hate art. I hate your... So it was like, I think it's like... But I think it's a moment. And I think it's good, it's very healthy. It means she's well, you know. So I'm grateful. She's not turning into an artist to start. Not yet. Who knows? But no, it's interesting. Yeah, it's because I feel like they're always involved, as you said. Like I might film them just, and then they appear in a film, and they're quite proud. They're like, ah, look, it's me. Or like now it's Esme Blue. I wonder what she's gonna think, because she's got octopuses everywhere and fishes. And like, what did you do to me? I don't know. But so far we good. I think they're a bit they're still small. So, but it's true. It's what's kind of not to dominate. I think I really want them to have their space, and but it does affect, I'm sure, and I'm very affected by them. So I think it's, but yeah, I don't. It's next generation. And, how was it for you to grow up with an artist?
I understand when you mention your grandmother, your grandfather, and it's just another way of seeing the world. And speaking of a child of an artist, yeah, when I was young, people would say, well, are you an artist? And it's like, no. It's my dad. He's the weirdo. He's the one that does us. But as you get older, it's you want to get closer to that parent. And you start getting more and more involved in art, and making it, or whatever way, appreciating it. So I'm hoping your children, they might say they hate it now, but they'll come around.
Thank you. Or they'll turn into bankers. Thank you.
Une autre question, one more before we wrap? Yeah? I just wanted to mention that, something you said in the interview that you did at the Rémy was, how do you say thank you with a work of art? And that was a very beautiful, like, giant question that seems to really be a driver, you would see in this project. Yeah?
Definitely, I think the homage is a thank you, yeah. And thank you to have the chance for me to be able to create with people and have these moments of experimentation and so it's true. It's like, it's almost too simple. It's like a card thank you, But I think some of these subjects are quite tricky. Like even like tackling the beginning of light. Is it too close or too? How do you have enough distance to it or not, actually, and really share this non-distance? And thank you is almost also something quite not so simple to translate as an artwork, I think. But I think with collaborators it's possible.